Morning, it's Tuesday, June 30, end of the financial year. Welcome to Herald NOW Business, thanks to our partners 2 Degrees Business. I'm Garth Bray. Great to have your company today. So what's ahead? Well, good news for EV and hybrid enthusiasts, and Expo's coming to Auckland, giving visitors the chance to get behind the wheel of a bewildering range of the latest models. But looking at energy, how should we firm up the energy supply? New polling shows a majority support that proposed LNG import terminal. Some questions, of course, remain over cost, energy security, and whether the project actually stacks up commercially. And there's concern growing over climate change impacts, along with the debate over who's responsible. We speak to one of New Zealand's biggest insurers about the cost of doing nothing. In news, moving markets today. Well, Rocket Lab's share price is lifted off on news it will acquire Iridium, one of the earliest satellite phone networks. The $14 billion stock and cash deal will give Rocket Lab control of a constellation of 66 satellites in low Earth orbit and 2.5 million subscribers, many in government, defence, aviation and maritime sectors, as well as the spectrum licences to reach them. The deal would make Sir Peter Beck's company a more direct competitor with SpaceX in its Starlink network. So US markets are up across the board as some confidence returns to the AI trade. In South Korea, Samsung and SK Hynix are set to spend more than $900 million on 2 new semiconductor fabrication plants. ASX and NZX both moved up as oil prices steadied. Let's just take a look at how they've come in there, slightly in the green. Average pump prices for 91 unleaded under $3 a litre. That's been a positive for main freight, trading up nearly 2%. That Brent crude front month future sits now at $73 and change. Bitcoin, by the way, edging back above 60k US, while our dollar is appreciating against most major trading partners. ASB is the latest bank to pick no change in the OCR next week. New Zealand's share market has tracked sideways through the first half of 2026, but beneath the surface, it's been anything but stable, of course. I'm joined now by Mohandeep Singh from Craig's Investment Partners. Mo, how much has that Middle East conflict reshaped expectations of economic recovery and what we all hoped for at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, morning, Garth. Amazing to see that the currency's going up a little bit, because when you look at it, I guess for the last little while, I think we're at decade lows against, the US, the pound, the euro, the Aussie. So that's been one of those things under the hood as well. Put the Middle East to one side as well, as the currency play has been quite dramatic for the New Zealand market. And, we are at those absolute lows now that we've seen in a decade or more. And that's helping our exporters. So you've seen the primary sector do really well. Fisher and Paykel, Scales, those companies that earn a lot of their money offshore are doing really well. But I guess in total, it has been a bit of a pause. We saw lots of, God, we hate using that word, green shoots now, but we saw that momentum at the start of the year. It just, packed its bags and walked away for 3 or 4 months. It certainly has come back. We've talked to a few companies that are in that cyclical space in New Zealand. I spoke to a number of them last week, the Freightways of the world and so forth, and they're pretty upbeat about how quick the rebound is going to happen, because I think, basically the oil price hike was a tax on all of us, wasn't it? We had to pay more at the pump. As that comes back, and you talked about under $3 now, I think that's money back in our pockets, and ultimately consumers will start to spend again and go back to the momentum we saw at the start of the year.
I am wearing my sort of green shoots tie this morning, by the way. The earnings picture, though, you're sort of picking that's probably going to be next year before we sort of see any strong recovery there?
Yeah, our market is really 2-speed. So we've got these sort of non-sensitive companies, your utilities companies, choruses, those types of ones where it doesn't really matter how the economy is faring. You still pay those bills, they still make their money and they move on. Then you've got these cyclical ones, whether it's construction, whether it's retail. That recovery, I think, will take till next year. It'll just take a little while for some of that confidence in the lagged markets. It takes a while for, piles and construction work to get underway, so consenting and all those sorts of things, and getting a builder organised. So I think the recovery around those sorts of sectors like housing, like construction, will come likely next year. Retail is a funny one, because you should expect we've got more money in our pocket, we'll start to spend it. But again, that currency thing, Garth, if those retailers are buying stock from offshore and our currency is weaker, it's costing them more to buy that stock, which means they need to put their prices up to protect some element of margin. And I'm not sure Kiwis are willing to dip into their pocket and pay higher prices. And so, if you're looking for a new iPad or iPhone towards Christmas time for yourself, Garth, I think you might have to jump in there a little bit early, because I suspect those prices, I know Apple's already put them up a fair bit, but the currency will hurt us as well as consumers, I think.
Yeah, and rates obviously are a big part of this picture, not just how the impact on the economy, the impact interest rates on all of those stocks that you just mentioned, but also, I guess, the risk premium that investors are looking for over and above. So that, I guess, puts a lot of focus on the next OCR decision and how many more come after it, right?
Absolutely. And look, I mean, I'm hoping there's just one hike and we get to 2.5% OCR and then we hold fire, because the market's not firing on all cylinders, as we've just talked about. There's still a bit of slack in there, but you're right. A lot of our market is yield sensitive. So our electricity companies and so forth, the choruses, like I mentioned, they all pay a reasonable dividend. And as the risk-free rate or the term deposit rate goes up because the OCR has gone up, the attractiveness of the dividends that our companies pay diminish a little bit. So that is a compounding impact that, if interest rates stay low, our market looks attractive. And as interest rates go up, then on a relative basis, the dividends that we receive from those listed companies becomes a little bit less attractive, but still something you want to have, because those dividends can grow over time if you believe that the earnings of those companies grow.
Right, it's a long-term play there. Mohandeep Singh there from Craig's Investment Partners, joining us here live from Tauranga this morning. Right, I reckon most of you are catching this right now on a laptop or a big screen. If you're on the move, we have news and it's good. Take us with you out the door. You can now watch Herald Now through the new New Zealand Herald app. Available to download from your preferred app store. Head to the watch section. You'll be able to stream us live, catch up on all the interviews and analysis that the team here do, and access that growing range of video content from across the Herald. So if you haven't downloaded this app yet, well worth a look. Get it in your app store. Get it in your Play, however you get it. New polling suggests a majority of New Zealanders support a proposed LNG import terminal, with 54% in favour and 21% opposed. The Talbot Mills Research for Gas NZ also found 69% believe LNG could improve energy security and help keep energy affordable. Dr. Chris McEwen from NZ Energy Consultants joins us now to unpack what the numbers mean for the government's plan. Chris, a quarter of people are still unsure there, I suppose. From a business and investment point of view, is there enough public backing to give it momentum for what's a fairly large investment?
Morena, thank you for that question. I think this is about insurance. And I think 25% of the country, or 29% of the country, are unsure whether they need insurance, and the remainder believe that we really do need insurance, because we don't want a repeat of 2024 when the lights nearly went out.
Yeah. And so this is really, you think about, it's not just about insurance though, it's about which insurance policy you choose and whether, potentially investing in something that, as we've seen, connects us to a sort of a fossil fueled energy market is the right play versus some of the others. Why do you think though that so many people are starting to look at this and see that this is potentially the right play?
I've seen a lot of reports published recently that say that we should look at diesel, or we should look at other alternatives, and we should build this and we should build that. And there's actually been quite a lot of noise around the negatives and potential costs. But this is not a new technology. LNG has been around for a long time. And essentially all it is, as I said, is building an insurance a policy for a dry risk year. And it's not complicated. Essentially, you're just attaching yourself to a large market in the future. And yes, I know that there is an existential threat of climate change, and people are concerned about locking us into that. But this is an insurance policy that can be affordable, it can be scalable, and you can be pragmatic that it can work.
Does it give the wrong cue though? Does it give the cue to, I guess, to the users of processed energy and so on, that gas has a much longer future, when all the indications from the domestic gas fields are that they're either out of gas or out of reach, if you're talking about the Great Southern Basin and other places where there just isn't the infrastructure there in place to tap anything that might be found?
Yeah, that's a good question. No, there are people that are looking for gas currently, people applying for permits off Taranaki. And, some things take time to come to market, and you've got onshore gas as well. But these fields are declining, the onshore fields, and our offshore fields are declining also. But like I said, this is about an insurance policy. The LNG terminal is primarily focused on making sure that in a dry year, in the middle of winter, when you want to put the lights on, that you can. That's really it. I mean, everything else is nice to have. It's about insurance.
But that insurance policy is going to take time to kick in. I mean, how quickly could something like this be up and running by your estimation? Are we talking it's 2 years away, 3 years away? Because that dry year risk we're expecting much sooner, aren't we?
It depends on the technology deployed. There are offshore floating solutions that can be put in place in 18 months. And, this is something that was identified a while back. So theoretically, we could have been up and running by now if we'd have started earlier. But generally speaking, in places like Wilhelmshaven in Germany, when it was a real crisis, when the Ukraine situation arose, they did that in 12 months.
And so it's kind of, to get very, very, very basic, it's the difference between getting a swap a gas bottle in terms of one of these massive ships that we're seeing online, or building our own facility, sort of buying our own barbecue and wiring it into the back deck kind of thing.
Absolutely. And where we're at the moment is people saying, should we go to Bunnings and buy a cheap barbecue? Or should we use an electric barbecue? Or should we use that sort or that sort or that sort? And really what this process seems to be about in the government tender process is we just need to get on with this and have a barbecue and get it ready, because we can't afford to run the risk of a dry year again.
Yeah, I guess it's also about, looking at how long that risk maintains, and whether, if you can build out enough renewables and so on, could we not look at overbuilding the amount of renewables that we have in place so that there is way more, and then that gives us insurance, it turns things on much more quickly, gives us more confidence to tap the hydro lakes a little more deeply.
That's a good point. And, renewable build out has to occur, and it is occurring, and, companies are doing a great job in building wind farms, etc., and more solar. Unfortunately, our hydro lakes sometimes aren't full enough in winter, and it's about dispatchable electricity, the flick of a switch. And gas is really good at that. You can flick it, switch, and on it comes. And essentially what you're doing with LNG is you're adding, on a good cold winter's morning, or bad, depending on your point of view, if you're not Scottish, you want to know that you can switch on a gas supply that's maybe twice the size of Coupe instantly.
Oh, well, that sounds like an enticing vision, and it looks like you got the numbers on your side there for the argument. That's Dr. Chris McEwen from NZ Energy Consultants joining us here this morning from Wellington. Coming up, the cost of climate change insurers are sounding a warning, and on the other side of the ledger, growing demand for EVs means an EV Expo is on its way.
Here she is. How's the business going?
Good, actually. We just switched to 2 degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference, but 2 degrees has free Aussie business roaming. With Flex, we get instant control of phone plans, data usage, and cost centre reporting. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
Tap into what matters with the new, faster, smarter New Zealand Herald app by selecting the news topics that mean the most to you. Download the new Herald app today and make the news your own.
Hi, we're Maddie and PJ from The Hits, and we'd love you to hang out with us in the afternoon.
I started running marathons, Paige!
Great! Why don't you talk about it some more?
Oh, Paige, you're really missing out! Oh, this feels good!
Afternoons with Maddie and PJ on The Hits and iHeartRadio. Did we mention Maddie runs?
Oh, feel the burn!
In 1985, my grandfather set out to make the world a better tea. That's why we grow our own, unlike other tea companies. Then pick the best leaves by hand, not machine, and pack it right here in Sri Lanka. But it's not just the taste that makes our tea better. 15% of our profit goes to humanity. And to the elephants. As my grandfather said,
Do try it.
Oh, it's a proper Lamington.
It only costs a few dollars.
but it all adds up.
What do you mean?
Well, every little donation we make contributes to something bigger.
How bigger?
Really bigger. Still require a bit more information here.
Together, we are powerful.
Come on, Jeff.
Well.
Oh, look. Together, we make the chopper. Donate now to the Westpac Chopper Appeal.
6:45 here on Herald Now Business. New Zealanders are increasingly concerned about the cost of climate change and want the government to take the lead in protecting people, property and communities while helping to bring down insurance costs. Herald senior correspondent Katie Bradford spoke to IAG's Executive Manager of Corporate Relations, Bryce Davies, and began by asking him what the public are most worried about.
They're expecting increasing impacts from weather, storms and floods, strong winds. They're seeing that not enough's being done about it, and they want that to change.
And it seems like they're saying that really no one's doing a good job of managing it or predicting it or getting ready for it, whether that be government, council, individuals, businesses, insurance companies, everyone's to blame.
Yeah, look, we asked a question, who's responsible for taking action on this? And quite rightly, they think everyone is. We all have a role to play, government, councils, businesses, insurers like ourselves. And no, they rate us pretty badly, actually. They're not seeing the level of action that they want. But when we ask them who should really be leading on this, they're pointing to the government to set the direction for the country.
Do you think that's also needed for insurers? You want the government to set the direction?
We're looking for a much more coherent plan around how we're going to manage these risks. So we put a report out a couple of weeks ago that set out what we saw the landscape as being. We have an approach to managing risks that's too reactive. We want something much, much more proactive, and we want to see a really clear plan about how we're going to get there. So we too are looking to the government to, show a greater commitment to reducing risk in this country.
Would insurance companies be willing to put, say, the money, the resources up front to actually try and be part of that prevention strategy rather than just reactive? Because that would surely cost you less in the long run.
Yeah, there's two things there. We are absolutely committed to playing our part, right? And there's lots of things that insurers can do to help contribute to understanding the problem, knowing where we need to act. But what we hear is that when the risk goes down, our customers expect us to reduce our premium. That's the role that they want us to play. So rather than being the investor up front, they want us to kind of hand back the benefit of the investment to them as a reduced premium.
Are you doing that?
Yeah, we do that. So at the moment, there's a lot of talk about risk-based pricing, and this is where insurers take, more detailed understanding of the risk and reflect that in your premium. So if you're in a low risk place, you pay less, high risk, you pay more. So as that rolls out, you're seeing, customers are seeing that if they're in a high risk location, their premiums are reflecting that risk. And for a lot of customers, their premiums going down because they're not living in a high risk location. So that's definitely happening.
How worried are you about areas that are going to become unlivable and uninsurable? And what is that going to mean for your customers and your business?
Yeah, we think about that quite a lot. We don't see many of those places in New Zealand at the moment. Insurance is pretty much widely available in most locations. If it's not, it's pretty obvious why. The waves are literally in the lounge. It's that sort of situation. But we know that that's going to change. Our perils are going to get worse, and low-lying houses in river valleys or on floodplains or by the coast. We think about those communities a lot. Which is why we want a greater focus on risk reduction. We want to keep insuring people. That's our business. That's how we make our money. And so that's why we want to see that risk either reduced because there is a solution to keep people in place and safe, or we need solutions to help them move to a safer location.
It's not just about being insurable, though. It's actually been about being able to afford it as well, right? And can you see a change both, in this poll, but also just in actual customer numbers of people who are going, I'm not being insured now, I simply can't afford it?
Well, certainly people are worried about the cost of insurance, undoubtedly. And there's always been a set of people who found it very difficult to afford their insurance. That was the case when I joined the industry 15, 16 years ago. It's certainly the case today. So they want us to offer as sharp a premium as we can, and we try to do that, but we need to reflect the risk. We make sure we manage our costs as best we can, and so we think the prices that we're putting out are a fair reflection of the cost of keeping people insured.
Bryce Davies there from IAG speaking with Herald senior correspondent Katie Bradford. From babies to pets to pools, well, it seems like there's an expo for just about anything. And now we can add electric vehicles and hybrids and the tech around them to the mix. Joining me now is Lawrence Carey, Managing Director of Squid Group, who's also organising the EV and Tech Expo in Auckland. Great opportunity for brands to get in front of people. I mean, there is a bewildering number out there. Why do you think, though, people are still kind of on the fence about them?
I think a big part of it is that people don't actually know what's sort of coming and what the tech's sort of about to do. I think with the expo showcasing, one, what brands are coming, what brands are here now, and then also the fact that you can power your homes in the very near future and things like that is something which is really exciting.
A lot of people, it's still things like, oh, the range, I don't know about this. It's people are familiar a little bit with internal combustion, right? We've been through a massive shock in terms of the oil prices and so on, and that's caused people to sort of rethink some of that. But there's still probably, I think, you know, some people might sort of return to form. What sort of choices do you think they might be reconsidering at the moment?
I mean, distance has always been something that people have been like, you're not going to get as far as a petrol vehicle, but I think that technology's moved so far with vehicles driving over 600 kilometres now on one battery charge. That's from Auckland to Wellington, with no refuelling or recharging. So there's definitely a huge opportunity there for what the technology is doing and things like that. So yeah.
I mean, once upon a time, there were just a handful, right? It was like a Nissan made a Leaf. I think, you know, you could almost call a Prius like a hybrid, that kind of stuff. If you had an expo like this 10 years ago, there would have been about 3 cars on the floor. I'm just looking at the list of names here I don't recognise. I've never heard of Farazan. I've never heard of Zeekr. Half of these things sound like breath mints or you know, but there's a huge and bewildering number of brands. How many do you think we're likely to see?
Yeah, so I mean, at the moment, we've got 12 brands onboarded. So we've got some of the key major brands already fully locked in, and then over the next month we'll have the whole suite pretty much coming on board. So it's really exciting to have so many brands coming on. Alongside that, I mean, if we look at the EV market in general, in China there's, I think, over 80 that are only sold domestically. So there is a wave coming for what EV vehicles and the technology that is there. And to have brands like Geely as our presenting partner, which is arguably one of the biggest EV brands in the world, the EV Expo is definitely going to be showcasing a huge range. So anyone wanting to actually see them, experience them, you can test drive them on site, and there's going to be a range of really awesome talks from not just electric vehicle brands, but also people shaping electrifying New Zealand.
Yeah, the tech around them is quite fascinating too. I mean, obviously the Chinese are leading this whole development of sodium ion batteries as well as the lithium stuff that's there. I mean, we like to see sort of some chit chat around that too, because that's a pretty huge technology.
Yeah, so there's some really cool things that I can't say right now, which are going to be at the expo, but there's definitely some really exciting announcements around what you will be able to see and vehicles which will have never been seen in New Zealand before. So the brands that are coming on board and the ones that are already on board have some really exciting things around what you can do now, which is generally what they call V2L, vehicle to load. So you can plug in your hairdryer into your car and blow your hair at the back of your vehicle.
Not a problem for me, obviously.
Exactly. No, but then there's the other side of it where you've got vehicle to load, vehicle to grid and things like that, so you're able to actually do both sides of it. So yeah, there's some really exciting changes coming.
Lawrence, what do you drive?
Right now I drive a Ford Ranger, but I will say that I definitely feel like getting an EV in the next year is definitely on the cards. So yeah.
Just do you think the possibly rubbing up alongside all of this sort of stuff has pulled you close enough to sort of see that there are some pluses?
100%. To be honest, I work with a lot of different brands and everything with my marketing agency, and after doing so much in this EV space, it's actually a space which I'm really excited about because I can see change and the possibility of what it will do for not just the brands and things like that, but for everyday households who want to reduce power bills, all that kind of stuff. It's actually really exciting.
It's a Bit of a mindset shift, isn't it? Hey,
Yeah.
thanks very much. That's Lawrence Carey, Managing Director there at Squid Group, co-organiser of the Expo, which our friends here at Driven at the Herald are helping you bring. Wrapping business with 2 Degrees now, our financial markets regulator has just released its hit list for the coming year. What's the FMA going after? Well, detecting and preventing fraud and scams, check, that's a good idea. Confirming customer complaints, bring change when they need to, oh, that's another good idea. Making sure brokers' commissions aren't interfering with giving good advice, check, like that. Some innovation around fintechs and licensing, good idea. But what's missing? Look across the Tasman and we might notice the FMA's equivalent is also coming down harder on egregious failures. ASIC set a goal to double the number of investigations and court proceedings that it takes. It has hit that first target and it's close to nailing the second. In the past 4 years, for example, the FMA has pulled in $60 million in penalty payments here. But in 6 months last year, ASIC hit a record 350 million Aussie in civil penalties and returned well over $500 million Aussie dollars to consumers and investors through remediation and refunds. Bigger economy, right? Bigger numbers, but also a bigger effort to do more than just supervise and encourage market participants to play fair. The FMA has 2 pretty high-profile cases in the courts at the moment, Chance, Voigt and Duval. One is moving ahead, while the other seems practically moribund. The market is watching. Well, that's us. Thanks to our partners, 2 Degrees Business. Up next, Ryan Bridge Today.
We just switched to 2 Degrees. Well, we tested the networks and couldn't see any difference. But 2 Degrees has free Aussie business roaming. And they're the fastest growing business network.
Can I have what she's having?
Why not just target law-abiding living in fear in the country?
So we lower the cost of living by growing the economy.
Jobs, health, homes, cost of living.
Still critically endangered. That's why this breeding season is so important.
We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country.
The New Zealand Herald. News worth knowing.
We all have a routine to help us get through the week. But that doesn't mean it has to feel so routine. Because with My Food Bag, you can come home knowing you've always got a yum meal to dish up. With new recipes to try and plenty of favourites that are simple, healthy and always delicious. It's a dinner routine that isn't stuck on repeat. My Food Bag. Dinner done better.
Luke Combs, Morgan Wallen, Kaylee Bell, Jelly Roll, Megan Moroney, Chris Stapleton. All the country stars have come to play on the all-new iHeart Country NZ. Your new home for country is iHeart Country NZ.
Winning New World Emerge has brought me into the Foodstuffs family.
Winning Emerge has really transformed our business.
New World Emerge is a competition for small and emerging suppliers to give them an opportunity to have their products ranged in New World stores across the country.
Such huge amounts of support from New World. So we're in a distribution centre, we now have a 3PL, third-party logistics.
Whenever I need access to something, all I've got to do is reach out and ask.
Yeah, good morning. You're watching Ryan Bridge today. Great to have your company. Tuesday, the 30th of June. On the show this hour, in fact, inside the next 10 minutes, Shane Jones on Limogate and on Fast Track. Also this morning, the top Aussie economist in the studio with a warning. Fix your tax system or you could watch your country break. My words, not his. He says we need to look at land taxes, capital gains taxes, even wealth taxes. Now, if I haven't put you off your cornflakes yet, we've got 5 minutes with this guy. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Will Labor do a deal with Top and Mount Albert to get back into government? Simon Bridges suggested so on this program yesterday. We'll get reaction from Chris Hipkins, Leader of the Opposition, after 7:30. And the Black Caps English Test Series drought is over, which means Ben Stokes' farewell bender can begin. We're live to Trent Bridge in Nottingham. Black Cap Rachin Ravinda is with me live. First, Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
The countdown could be starting for the end to the government's $50 weekly fuel support payment, but still hinges on a rocky ceasefire between the US and Iran. Gaspy is reporting a litre of 91 has dropped below $3 on the back of declining oil prices. Finance Minister Nicola Willis says she's waiting on MB to verify this. She says the support stops once 91's been below $3 for 4 consecutive weeks, but the situation is still volatile. Willis says if oil prices spike again in response to events in the Middle East, fuel prices might bump up again. 2 former police officers are standing trial in Auckland, accused of perverting the course of justice, leading to a wrongful murder conviction.